I'm John Billingsley, and you are listening to Beyond Track podcast.
What are some thoughts of yours towards the whole, is Star Trek getting too woke?
The idea that a show that exists to push the boundaries in terms of what is acceptable and what it should be like just part of our human condition, which is, everybody on the fucking ship, as long as you're nice. To me, it's like you can't be too woke.
Red alert.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Beyond Trek Podcast. Today we're premiering, isn't that cool? VTC, Virtual TrekCon. Say hi to everybody. Hi everybody, Chat Pack. We love you.
Hi everyone. Hello.
Hello. I'm Dag. In the house today we've got Renzo and Big J.
Yo.
And we're going to do a little spin up of our stuff here, and it's going to be what it is because it's cool. We are talking about Lower Decks, Season 2, Episode 10, Season Finale, First Contact. No, I did not stutter. This is your spoiler alert. I was really impressed with this episode. Again, 8 episodes in a row, what season gets to do that?
They hit all the marks. I don't know how they do it.
I'm honestly shocked that I even love the name for it, right? First Contact.
Right.
That's just a very clever play on it, too.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because it's the first time that Cerritos has to and gets to do the first contact. It's got multiple layers to it. Big fan.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Good for them.
It was also really nice that First Contact turned out the way that it did.
Party! Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that was great. But one of the best things about this episode is how it opens with just no hiding anything. You get to see this ship that's been rumored online for a week, the USS Archimedes NCC 83002. I have a feeling somebody in Mike McMahon's family was born on August 30th, 2002. Don't know who it is, but that's where some of those numbers come from. But the Archimedes, can we talk about this ship for 3 seconds?
Oh,
Sure.
yes.
Or more. Thoughts?
It's lovely. It looks like an updated design for the Excelsior. I know that Mike McMahon, in his Twitter, has explained to everyone that it is not an Excelsior class, it's an Obina class ship. It's like an Excelsior, but bigger. But that's not in the episode, so technically we can't really call it canon. We don't really know what it is. It looks like an updated Excelsior to me. And it kind of fits the scale, too.
Has anybody said Sovereign class on the air in any episode?
I believe it shows inside of the dedication plaque on the side of the wall.
Oh, well then it might be on the MSD on the back of the ship then.
Fair.
It was, wasn't this the season finale for season 1 when Captain Freeman was at the space dock and she says something about the ship going all Sovereign class on me or something like that. But
Indeed.
Yep.
I like the updated Excelsior class look. I thought, to me it looked like it was just the nacelles that were different, and I wouldn't think that you would change it, make it a whole different class just for that.
That's fair. There's a bit more to it than that, though, right? So it's got these swept back pylons for the nacelles. Those are angled. They're no longer that L-shaped bracket that the Excelsiors were, which is nice. Right. It also has all the Enterprise B updates to the Excelsior, so it's got those bulgy bits next to the deflector dish and the extensions around the Excelsior's engines.
Yep.
So it's definitely building on something that built on the Excelsior.
Well, it had those advanced impulse drives off the back of the saucer section, but the saucer section had been elongated. It wasn't a circle. It looked more like a Sovereign style.
Yeah, it's definitely a clear sign of Starship design evolution, not revolution. It is not a new design kind of thing we've never seen. It's just an update on something we know very well.
Right. And the Obina was named after the show's art director.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
I was wondering where that came from. Well, and they should do that. One of the small gripes that I have about Starfleet ships, they get so cute and fancy with them. Everything has to be eye candy. These different ships, designs, sizes. You look at every other race, Klingons, Romulans, Pac-Led. It's maybe 3 of them. Boom, boom, boom. That's it, and that's all we need.
That's just observer bias. We see so much more Starfleet than we see of anything else. If we had a ship set in the Klingon Empire, we'd probably see a few dozen more designs as well.
That would be cool. What's a worker bee look like in the Klingon Empire?
They have them in memory beta. I can show you that later.
Okay. Stick around for bonus features. So
the other cool thing is the Archimedes is captain, right? So it's not just a ship that's neat. We also learn who the captain was, and it's a certain Sonia Gomez, who we know well from her time on the Enterprise D.
From those 3 episodes that she was in, one of which introduced the Borg and also introduced Captain Picard's uniform to some hot chocolate.
Now, I thought it was 2. Maybe I'm missing the third one.
It's 2.
Knew it was. Oh well, Cal, it was 2. I'm so glad that we got to see her again, and they really missed an opportunity here for her being captain. And you know who else should have been on here that I think would have been awesome? They did. Ensign Kim.
No. Let's give him his time as a lieutenant for a while, because he hasn't been a lieutenant yet long enough.
Nah.
He's got to work his way up the grades.
I think he'd still be ensign.
So
Poor
one
guy.
fun fact for us, though, is that the second episode that Sonia Gomez appears in is the Samaritan Snare. So she has experience with the Pakleds from the original contact with the Pakleds on the Enterprise D. So if they're still afraid of like Pakled misadventures when they're out doing these missions, she's a good choice. She knows what the Pakleds are about. So it makes sense to have her on this frontier where the Pakleds are causing trouble still.
Great to see her as a captain after 15 years after first contact, or 16 years after contacting the Borg.
I mean, it's a pretty quick ascent, too, for a career, right? Like, remember when Data has that conversation with War? I only remember this because I watched the episode again like 2 days ago in Data Lore, where Data is asked by War, how do I get that uniform? And he goes, well, you'll spend 5 years at the academy, then you'll spend 4 or 5 years as an ensign, and then 10 or so years in the lieutenant grades before becoming lieutenant commander. But if she made it from ensign to captain in 15 years, that's a crazy high ascent path. Well, she must have gotten like a battlefield commission during the Dominion War or something.
That's probably how a lot of promotions happen.
I agree.
There's a lot of military deaths. There's a lot of slots to fill. A lot of new ships coming around out of that. Same thing after Wolf 359. You've got 39,000. I mean, on the dark side of looking at that is 39,000 lives were lost, and a lot of fields needed to be quickly reinforced. So you saw a lot of people in the lower grades moving up very quickly just because they were the last best expert in the field.
Yep.
You said it was an amazing feat to go from ensign to captain in 15 years. I will laugh in Kelvin Timeline Kirk.
Yeah, no, that's just the silliness stuff.
One day, cadet to captain.
Other fun realization here is, so Sonia Gomez has been a big part of the beta timeline, or the Litverse, for the last like 20 years or so. She was actually the chief engineer on the Da Vinci, which was a Starfleet Corps of Engineers ship. She literally flew around fixing engineering problems, and then eventually was the captain of that ship. So she becomes a captain in the Litverse as well as she does here.
Yeah, very cool to follow up on that. So we're introduced to her under what conditions? What's going on?
Well, looks like she's meeting with the Admiral and with Captain Freeman, and they're discussing the transition that Captain Freeman is making to a new role on a new ship.
As well,
she's
as
getting a promotion.
I think it's also they're talking about like Sonya's upcoming first contact mission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and Sarita's playing a support role there.
I'll correct myself. I said promotion for Captain Freeman. They transfer, not like a promotion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's an elevation in the sense that we're getting the impression she's moving to a capital ship.
Right.
It's an elevation of status, but not of like rank.
Yeah.
But no, so in this mission that they're having, or this mission briefing that they're having with Admiral Freeman, they're told that they're going to have first contact in the LAP system, where there's this new beautiful M-class planet, and there's also an unstable planetoid near the sun, but nothing to really worry about. The Liparians seem pretty friendly, and the quick question comes from Captain Freeman: why not just have both our ships enter orbit at the same time? And that's this great line that Sonia Gomez makes about how we don't want our first contact to be mistaken for first invasion. And that's a very good point. You don't want to show like a particularly heavy hand with a race that may not understand what you're doing.
Right. Right. One interesting thing about the backdrop here, I believe they're in the starbase talking with the admiral, and he's got his little shelves of stuff, and it looks to me like there's a steamrunner class sitting on the shelf.
I thought it was an Akira, but you might be right. It's hard to tell.
They were close. The Akira and the steamrunner class were...
Because the steamrunner class to me was a lot more compact, while the Akira still sort of maintained that Constitution body build. Saucer body nacelles.
No, the steamrunner is the saucer nacelles that connect to a pylon that has the overhanging deflector dish. There's no connection between the deflector dish and the saucer at all, direct.
Well,
it's kind of like this open hole space in the middle.
I mean, it's hard to tell. This is a very interesting.
No, I'm with you.
Ship.
With you on hard to tell. Right.
And the audience can see it here. We've got it up in our display here. You guys can't see it, unfortunately, but so I thought that was really cool. I like seeing the little ship callbacks on each of these captains.
Tell us what you think. Is this a steamrunner, an Akira, something new? Like, what are you guys seeing with your eyes? Tell us.
Yeah. I'm sure there's somebody in here who's super techie. Just Genus, maybe? Who knows? Yeah, so they're celebrating Freeman's elevation here, and it seems really cool.
She deserved it. Very fitting.
Yeah.
So as they're leaving this, they're making their way back through the starbase, and we actually switch perspectives to Ensign Mariner, who's just carrying a box of what looks like blue Romulan ale.
Maybe.
Looks like Romulan ale.
Runs into Jen.
And literally spills a few out, and they have a little bit of a tiff, you could say.
Interesting moment in that tiff. Like, there's plants here, just like there used to be plants on the Enterprise D in, like, season 1.
I think they're using the plants to tell us that it's on the starbase still.
Okay, I'm still okay with this.
Plants on the Cerritos, yeah.
No, but it still just sort of makes me feel like there's a callback to those early TNG scenes where the Enterprise really did come off as like a cruise ship. There were little lounges in the intersections and stuff like that with these plants there.
Yeah, little couches.
Another cool thing about having plants on a starbase like this is if there's any like discrepancy in the air supply, these plants are helping, to change the carbon. I'm going to drink my drink now.
They'll help some.
What do you think, real plants or replicated?
They're probably specially genetically engineered plants designed to produce as much oxygen as possible and to pull as much carbon as possible.
Or they're phylogenians in hibernation.
Right, of course, because we are talking about Starfleet. They've got to overdo everything. It can't just be a simple plant. It has to be like probably some android synthetic plant.
No, like think of it this way, right? Like if you have, I think Dag's point is very salient, right? Like if you have a problem with your life support systems, right, and you have plants on the ship, they may as well be the best plants possible for that one time where they can save your life.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just see everybody hovering around the plant.
Puffing in the plant. All right, so Beckett and Jennifer essentially spit acid at each other over this whole, like, they bumped into each other, like, you're gonna turn me in, don't turn me in, I don't even care, well, that kind of thing.
It definitely highlights. It definitely highlights, like, Mariner thinks way too much about Jen, then Jen is just like, ugh, leave me alone.
Or Jen is just using that line to piss her off, right? Like the whole "I don't think about you." Yeah, I don't even think about you. That's just like Mean Girl level stuff.
Oh yeah, that's
Maybe.
worse. If you really want to burn someone, make it seem like you don't even think about them, like they just don't even exist. And
either way, though,
Mean Girl
like
stuff.
either way though, this whole scene is very much in character for both of them. We know they dislike each other. It's whatever. But while Mariner is picking up the rest of her little dropped Romulan ale or whatever, the captain and Sonia Gomez walk past her talking about like having to give some tearful goodbyes. And we also hear from that same discussion that Captain Freeman is not going to be allowed to transfer senior staff off the Cerritos because Starfleet likes to keep California-class crews on California-class ships. That seems really odd to me from just like a Star Trek standpoint, but
it does.
It seems like there's always been a lot of mobility in the fleet. Like if you want to be on a ship, you can, and you're good enough, you can get to that ship.
It could be a throwaway line. It could be I think it's a throwaway line to suggest that this is why we've never heard about California-class ships. Nobody's ever transferred onto a capital ship from a California class ship. They don't really talk about California class ships. All we get is like, you know, for all intents and purposes, according to Lower Decks now, you know, we get the privileged ships.
I gotta tell you, I hate the concept of calling some ships capital ships and then the California not, because if you go by McMahon's word, the California class is bigger than an Excelsior class, and we treat those as capital ships.
But he wrong now, and we know why.
Yeah, he is.
Because if you just dodge like slightly, yep, right there, it over.
Well,
Scale
I
will be
always took
done.
capital. I get what you're saying. I kind of took capital ship as, I don't think it's so much size, it's the role that you're playing. So it's a capital ship doesn't mean you're on a bigger ship. It's just that you do something that's a lot more robust or not profound, but you know what I mean.
You're on
like
the cutting edge of the mission parameters.
Right. You might be on a small ship, but you're not doing, you're not a paperwork ship that just goes around for second contact setting up stuff. You're probably on the fringes of space, front line. So that's how I see a capital ship.
I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't think a whole class is going to be defined by a single mission set like that, right? So most ships in Starfleet are multi-mission, right? Like they can do multiple things. The Galaxy class can just ferry dignitaries. We've seen many episodes where the Enterprise D just goes A to B carrying people, and that's the whole shtick. Sometimes they are pushing the boundaries. Most ships are multi-mission. Cool. The Cerritos and the California class as a whole, we've been told, are generally assigned a single mission subset, right? So the engineering subset is what the Cerritos gets because it's painted yellow. The one with the M in the name was red colored, and there's a blue one that they found that was doing the research on the other thing. Like they're painting the California classes into certain boxes. So maybe it's the fact that they're not multi-mission ships. That's why they're not capital ships. I still don't think that capital ship equates to multi-mission though. I think that's like a bit of a break there in the logic, because I don't think that a Nova class could possibly do more than one mission. An Oberth class can't do more than one mission. They're too small. They're not meant to, right?
Looking at you, Voyager.
Right. Even the Intrepid class is probably very limited in its number of like mission types.
Which is
Looking
really
at you,
interesting.
Defiant.
Absolutely. Defiant definitely is not a multi-mission ship.
Okay.
It's an escort.
It's not. It's officially classified as an escort, but it doesn't even have an NCC designation.
Well, that's just because it was the prototype. That's what the NX came from.
Right,
Well,
but
the
even
Sao Paulo did when they renamed that.
That's just because they were lazy on the budget and didn't want to reshoot all the opening scenes with an A added to the name.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Well,
100%.
but why would they have
Yeah.
to? Because it was only a few more episodes. It could have just been like,
because you have to redo the whole intro, and that's exactly the reason. It was only a few more episodes. They didn't need to waste the budget on
So
that.
they just gave it the name and number back.
If you're just tuning in, Deep Space Nine did this epic 10-episode finale that really did the best job, in my opinion, of tying up as many loose ends as possible for everybody who participated in that show. But Renzo's right. When, spoiler, the Defiant was destroyed and replaced with the Sao Paulo an episode later, the Sao Paulo, they were given special dispensation to rename Sao Paulo the Defiant, and the Defiant was re-registered as NX-74205.
Yeah.
And they kept it that way
Even
because
though
all
it
of the
should become
external
NCC.
all of the external shots, including the opening, fanfare, would have had to be reshot. And with all those epic fight scenes from all those angles, they didn't need to pay to replace the CG model, because those are the first ones. Those are the first CG battles right there for Star Trek.
Just to fill in the names on things, because I said them before, but I didn't spit out the names. The Merced California class was blue colored, and the Rubido and the Solvang, both California classes, and those were red colored. So they had more of a command tinted like aspect of their things. But yeah, so they definitely try and limit what the California class does. That's the thing.
Yeah.
All right, moving on before we stay here forever.
I know. Well, yeah.
Because we can hit that rut.
We're
and
in the
just be
Sequoia
right there.
Bay with our favorite shuttle, and 3 out of 4 of our favorite main characters here.
Mm-hmm. And what are they doing, Dag? What are they up to?
You had to ask him right when he's taking a sip of his. It's like the server at the restaurant. The moment you put food in your mouth, they come. How is everything?
The appropriate etiquette there is to spit your drink out and be like, "Thanks, everything good," and then continue with your soggy burger. It's not an
such a gag
episode.
reflex, Big J. Everything makes you gag,
It's
man.
not an episode until I do that. But what they're doing in this scene is what Jay's background is. They are painting, or Boimler is madly painting a new Happy Freeman Day in a tip of the hat to Picard Day, while Rutherford is having an issue with his little implant there, and he
has
asks,
a pop-up.
Yeah.
Pop-ups.
A
Pop-up.
gamma
He needs ad blocker.
something thing issue. In any case, the pop-up is preventing him from doing his work. He asks Boimler if he can take a shift in the cetacean ops. Boimler says nope, he's got to do this Happy Freeman Day like a good ensign who's dedicated to his captain and crew.
I thought that the Captain's Day thing was for kids.
Yeah.
Or calves.
Well,
Kiss asses.
kids and kiss asses.
Kids and calves. I don't know if you guys caught that clip from later on, but yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, no,
might
no
have met-
the dolphin guys were great.
Yeah, Matt and
Kamolu?
thank you.
That's so funny. The guy's name is Matt. He's a big dolphin. Where would you get Matt as a name? But
Where would you find a girl named Michael?
okay, all right, yeah.
Hold
Yeah,
on.
Well, but no, wait a minute. But that is a fitting human name. We're talking about
Maybe
these-
Matt was an orphan and raised by humans. You don't know.
Okay, all right, yeah. I'm just so glad we finally, first time in
Amen.
Trek ever,
Agreed. Completely.
cetacean. So I'll go with something funny that one of them's called Matt. It just
Well,
it fits the
do
humor.
you remember in Men in Black when they first bring Jay into the main ops area, there's two aliens who are operating like the video screens and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
Tommy Lee Jones is like, hey, these are the two guys, they monitor all the frequencies for us, this is Ka-ching! And Jeff.
yeah.
So, you know, it's that pun if it's not directly an homage. But Mariner comes in to talk to Boimler here, and what is she talking about? Nobody knows.
Mariner asks if Ransom would be willing to move up Captain Freeman Day to better line up for Freeman's promotion. She's like starting shit, basically. She's telling
Right.
people this whole like the captain is leaving us story.
Yeah, she starts a rumor.
Yeah. So she's starting it here, and then
Boimler's
Bradward.
idea.
Bradward's idea was essentially, well, let's make sure that she still gets Captain Freeman Day. Let's just move up the date. To which Mariner gets the idea, oh, I'm going to tell Ransom. I'm going to tell the senior staff. This will cause a mutiny, essentially, is what she's thinking.
Yep.
And it's so petty.
It's
What?
Mariner. About her
Yeah.
mom. I mean, it's the
Right.
perfect opportunity for her to be kind of petty about things.
Yep.
Yeah, just call her Petty LaBelle.
Yeah, so Tendi also gets a call from Dr. Ta'an to report to her office, and she worries if Ta'an is mad at her. Rutherford assures her that it's not, but can't tell to be sure that Tendi hasn't left the room because of the thing blocking his vision.
Yeah.
Now, that was the thing that I thought was very interesting is getting that on your vision screen or right in front of you. That was a good ad because I have always been curious to see what things look like from the eyes of Data. We've seen what it looks like to see through the eyes of LaForge when he had the visor and then also when he had the ocular implants. I'd like to see how Data sees things. Like, is it just a constant HUD, like you're in a game or something, or is it does he have a taskbar he can hide or something? I've always wanted to know those things, and
We don't get to
It kinda-
see that because then we would know how many tabs Data has open in Android Chrome.
I'm
Curses
sure
on
he runs
you.
a very pared down OS, don't you worry. But no, so anyway, our next scene is in the mess hall. We've got Billups and Shax and Ransom just hanging out, socializing, and Mariner sits at their booth, drinks Ransom's drink, and then starts to tell them the rumor that it's going to be the issue for the next few scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So we get this. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Mariner and Ransom, are they maybe close in age, possibly Academy at the same time? Because the way that they interact with each other is kind of like that.
Annoyed.
Even though there's a big spread in rank.
It's because Mariner's insubordinate.
Okay, just because she's well, yeah, I know.
yeah.
I know she's insubordinate. It's just I kind of got the impression that they know each other a little more beyond being on the ship. Maybe they were at the academy, within the same time, even though one may have been older than the other. I'm probably overthinking.
I don't think so. I don't think any of that's probable. I think the likeliest thing is maybe they fucked once after season 1 when they had their escape thing from that one alien prison planet. They're adults. They can do what they want. Starfleet has no rules against that. But
True.
I don't think that they've ever allowed it to become anything more than just a one-time lay equivalent, right? And Ransom certainly doesn't want it to be anything that interferes with his command stature. So he is clearly annoyed by Mariner, and the reason why she is so informal with him is definitely because she is just insubordinate.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think Tuvix agrees with me.
Tuvix.
Can I see the doggy?
Poor
No,
boy.
I'm not
Looking
picking him
at
up right now.
Tuvix.
No.
Oh.
Maybe later.
No Tuvix
You
right
good
now.
boy.
He needs to
He's
learn.
being very annoying. He needs to not.
He needs to learn.
Okay, so our next scene is really pretty. It mimics the whole Star Trek 3 when the ships leave space dock, but this time it's the Cerritos and Archimedes. Very pretty, very well shot. And they both warp out to the LAP system.
They warp out to the lab system, but not before Freeman gets some crap from her senior staff.
They've got beef.
They're not happy, and they finally warp out, and she asks for a senior staff meeting in her ready room.
And Mariner just invites herself, mind you.
Which happens
Right,
all the time in Star
she's
Trek.
going to do that.
When Cisco said to assemble the senior staff and take me out to the holosuite, for some reason Esri and Nog are there.
At least Esri's a Starfleet officer.
Hey, so is Nog.
Was he already graduated at that point? I thought he was still a cadet.
It's 7th season, so he's
No,
an ensign,
he's an ensign then.
but he's not
Right.
senior staff.
No. But yeah.
But-
But
but
Ezra
Freeman-
would be.
I don't think Esri would have been. She wasn't the chief science officer.
Starbase counselor.
Yeah.
Right. Well, senior staff, again, is kind of one of those...
Captain's choice.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
Narrative discretion.
Yeah. I'm not sure how to really define senior staff, but when you say that Esri and Nog, I'm sorry. Oh my God. Nog. Jeez, my brain is
Jay's
fried.
suffering.
I am. I'm suffering for probably early onset dementia or something. I would think that Esri would qualify as the quote unquote senior staff, but you're right. Nog definitely not.
Like I said, I think that counselor might matter if you treat your counselor the way Picard did. I don't think that Cisco ever cared for a counselor the way that Picard did, so I don't see him putting her on senior staff equivalent. But yeah, Nog is just an ensign.
Yep.
Kind of rough. Anyways, so the debate that happens on the bridge is actually pretty funny. It's like Ransom begrudgingly does her orders because it's like, if I had, you're telling me what to do, it's nice when we all communicate this way. Then she asks Shax about repairs to the phasers, and he's like, if he had an update, he would tell her because communications are important amongst the crew. And immediately she asks Billups about it, and Billups rages at her and immediately grabs everyone and they go into her office. So
There's a little cutscene there where Tendi walks into the sick bay to find out that Ta'ana has deleted her file. She's a little worried about this. She feels like she's going to kicked off the ship.
deleted from the medical roster, and she is now doomed.
Yep.
So she thinks she's out, which you never want to see yourself get deleted off the roster, even when you're a backup.
Yeah, that's gotta have happened to some of us though, right? Like you go into work and for some reason none of your access credentials work that day, right? Like you can't log into things and it's like, did I get fired and nobody told me?
Oh boy,
kind of moments.
Man, that really happened too.
I've seen that happen too. There was a mix-up between IT and HR, and this dude got his stuff cut off, and so he came into the IT guy was like, "Hey, I can't log in and nothing's working, doing anything." And of course, that guy's put on the spot. Like, calls HR. You guys say something to this guy because we mistimed this, and now he's asking what's up. And that happened with me one time with the key fob. Like, it didn't. There had just been a lot of recent layoffs, and coming into work, put my key fob to the thingy, and it didn't register, and I couldn't open the door. And I was just like, "Oh my god, what?" And then I did it again and opened. But
yeah,
stuff like that.
That happened to me as a contractor when my contract didn't get renewed. So security automatically put me on a deferred list. So I'm standing out there like, bzz, 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 and I'm like 3 hours early for actual work, so I have to wait for 3 hours for security office to open so that I can.
Are you serious?
Well, because I get there at like 6 a.m. when I had to travel to the office because I hate traffic. So I went to a McDonald's and had like what do they call it? Never-ending, unlimited hash browns or something like that. Because their hash browns are great. And
they do?
Well, by unlimited, I mean I just went up and kept buying like 5 at a time for 3 hours.
Oh my god.
That was a long time ago. I really like the hash browns. Can we get back to the episode?
I also like the hash browns, mind you. But okay, so we have that little short snippet there with Ta'ana. We go back to Freeman's ready room, and Freeman immediately just goes like, what the hell's going on? Mm-hmm. And then Mariner tells what happened. Mariner heard the conversation with Sonia Gomez, and she told everyone. So the senior staff all start voicing their grievances. It's this whole shtick that they each are pissed about. And Ransom is the only one who's like, I mean, who are they going to find to replace you? Who are they going to find to replace me? Right? Like, I'm still going with you, right? And then Freeman has to crush his soul
twice
and tell him that, like, nope, just me. And then he thinks that he's going to become the captain next. And then she responds with, nope, they're bringing on somebody from outside, too.
Yeah.
And Ransom looks like somebody just, like, killed his dog.
Broke his heart. And then Billups goes off again.
Billups going off he's the last one you expect to do that. And Ransom is such a kiss ass. It really, it's come out before, but even more so now because he wants to tag along with his captain. And now not getting promoted to captain, that is kind of a burn because Starfleet seems to, if they're going to promote within the inside, like your first officer becomes a captain. If the captain transfers or whatnot, it doesn't happen all the time, but you would think that would have been.
There's more examples of the opposite.
Yeah. I mean,
so like, let's look at the original Enterprise, right? The only time that we really saw like a replacement for Kirk was after season 3 and the motion picture, and they picked somebody new for the captaincy. They didn't promote anybody from on the ship. Okay, cool. With the Enterprise D, we had like 5 or 6 times where somebody else was essentially in charge, and only a couple times was it Riker. I think the only time that I can think where he was actually like given like, you're now the captain, was Best of Both Worlds, right?
In the prime timeline.
Yeah,
And
sure.
even when they got a new captain aboard, it was from outside. They got Jellicoe.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
They had Data in command a couple of times. They had Geordi in command a couple of times. They had Beverly in command a couple of times.
Leaving people in command is different than becoming captain.
Right. That's why my brain is like, I'm like, okay, yeah, these people fall into the left in command bucket as opposed to assuming command of the ship bucket.
Yes.
So yeah,
you're right. Not a lot, but real quick, in all fairness, for your example of the motion picture, your top 3 officers from the Enterprise did. One got promoted, one went on sabbatical. Spock for Kolinar, and Dr. McCoy was just
McCoy's not top
retired.
3. Who's the second officer on the Enterprise, my man?
Scotty.
Well, Scotty
should have been next up, and Scotty's got enough time and space. He beats Captain Decker by far. So,
well, but he's an engineer.
He was already a commander. He was a commander by that point already.
You don't want to stick him in the. You don't want to stick him in the center seat.
I don't think he'd want it, but
no.
He never wanted it.
No, for sure.
He had the rank of captain, but he always ever wanted to be a chief engineer.
Yeah,
yep.
But my point is, there was an opportunity there for them to like press gang somebody into being captain, which Starfleet Command has in the past, but they didn't.
Yep.
So, all right, getting back to this episode, back to first contact. So we go back to the lower decks. Tendi is now explaining what she saw when she was at Ta'ana's office to Rutherford, and she thinks that she's done. He looks her up inside of the ship's medical database and notices that, oh, your entry is deleted. And Tendi begins to cry. Rutherford comforts her and gets this idea they should visit all their favorite places on the ship so that she'll have a proper goodbye and have all these fresh memories before she leaves somewhere else. And then more pop-ups. Now he's like, his entire vision is covered up in pop-ups from his alerts from his implant. So he walks into a wall, and then Tendi grabs his hand, and they walk holding hands with her leading him, which was very sweet.
To engineering.
Yeah.
Cut
I
on
love
over
the
to that
pop-ups again. It
beautiful
was
ship.
funny.
You guys can't see this, but the audience can see this. We get the establishing shot of the Archimedes in front of that sun right after
Oh,
coming
it was a
out of
great
warp.
shot too.
And
All the exterior shots this episode were lovely.
I'm really, really fascinated with the way that they're doing these establishing, because the CG for these ships feels very much like Prodigy. Even though this show has a much different animation style, the CG is still very on point for the ships.
Let's wait till we see Prodigy.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's just we haven't seen enough of it. But I'm just looking at this and I'm like, man, can you imagine if they had this kind of CG back when, like, The Undiscovered Country came out? People would have thought this stuff was real.
I think
Yeah.
Undiscovered Country holds up really well. It's a
It does.
beautiful movie.
It absolutely does. The models are superb. I'm just
You want to see
saying.
something whose CG doesn't hold up? Watch Babylon 5.
Oh God!
All right,
I
yes.
love
Chat.
B5. I
All
love
right,
B5.
chat.
But
You know what
I-
though is they're redoing Babylon 5, and if they're gonna
Yes.
if they're gonna redo Babylon 5 the right way, they're gonna take all of the film scenes they did that were in internal shots, or on-site location, and just 4K remaster them,
That's not
and
what
then
they're doing.
do all new graphics for all the external establishing shots, and then that would be the perfect show.
No,
J.
this is
Michael
sequel
Straczynski's
series.
already said it's not a sequel series. It's a new show
Yeah.
in the same setting with different characters. It's not a
Okay. So it's the same.
it's
just
not a reboot either. It's just a new story in the same universe.
Okay, so
Oh.
we're on the same station, Babylon 5, and it's a new year and a new story and a new thing. Okay, that's cool.
Yep.
all right.
That's way cool.
Yeah, no, J. Michael Straczynski's like, I'm not retelling the same story. I'm not recasting these characters. So, something different.
Oh, that's fantastic. Welcome to Beyond Babylon podcast. This is Dag.
I'm down. But no, so either way, there are shows whose like effects just don't hold up, right? Like you watch an episode of Andromeda,
Yeah.
the effects don't hold up. Undiscovered Country, Wrath of Khan, that shit looks great still.
It does. They hold up real well.
Yeah,
Even today.
it's true. But without those two shows that you just talked about, like, we wouldn't have gotten the experience we need to build on a lot of those
No
things
doubt.
and make them better.
No disagreement there. I love both those shows. But my point is still like the effects just are kind of rough when you look back.
Yeah.
All right, so going back, we see the Archimedes arrive. Cool shot, like looks really nice. And then we have Tendi and Rutherford wandering the Cerritos. They go to the warp core where they have to hide from Ta'ana again because Ta'ana is looking for Tendi, which is kind of terrifying when you have the crazy cat lady looking for you.
Oh.
She is hunting her down. You see her sniffing, trying to find her. That's intimidating as hell.
I would think that's scary.
There is a
Having
touching
cat
moment.
lady sniffing you out, trying to find you.
There's a touching moment on the Archimedes before that where the fresh-faced ensign trips over the stairs on the Archimedes bridge, and Captain Gomez, assures her that she's not the only person. She's done far more embarrassing things in front of far more intimidating captains. Totally referencing
Oh.
spilling hot chocolate on Captain Picard.
It's a great reference because that is what you remember Sonia Gomez for.
And
Ordering
that's
something from the
probably
replicator and immediately walking into Picard.
totally imagine that like heavily influenced her career path.
Probably. You know how
I'm never
mortifying
gonna do this again.
that
Oh.
yeah, you know how mortifying that would have been to be the one fresh on the ship and plow right into Picard, get his uniform messed up. That's why you need to look where you're going before you just move in that direction before doing it. And because I do that, I'm a pretty sizable guy. If I just go barreling around without looking first, somebody could get hurt. And I try to consciously make sure I'm looking first, because too many times I've seen, someone walking this way, they're looking back behind them, paying no attention to where they're going. I mean, you could step into a
Jay's trying to
manhole or
tell us
something.
that he spilled hot chocolate on his coach once.
No, I'm just saying, like, imagine being the newest person working at Amazon and walking into Jeff Bezos and spilling your coffee on him on your first
Oh.
fucking day or something, right? Like, that's the kind of mortification this has to be. He owns more money than you'll ever sniff in your life, right? Like, this right now, he's making that money.
He,
So, like,
he would
Right.
take you. He would take you, put you on the next trip on Blue Origin, and then when it gets in there, just eject you out of the airlock. That's what would
leave you
happen.
there.
That's
Yeah.
what would happen.
Picard is much nicer than Jeff Bezos.
You'd
is
have
what
a
I'm
bunch of
getting
like sensors all over you, like we're going to measure your sensory reactions in space, and then just eject you, and we'll just take those sensor readings.
at. So they keep traveling around inside of the Cerritos. Tendi and Rutherford keep traveling around the Cerritos. They go inside of the Jeffries tubes where they watch the Tivoli pulsar. And again, Tendi cries a bit. Then they talk about how everyone's advised not to get attached to their ships, but Rutherford is really clear he loves the Cerritos.
Yeah,
And that's a nice, cool thing.
it's really
Um,
cool to see their friendship come back to fruition like this.
And
When
then
you
they
can get
decide-
attached to a ship or where you work.
The ship is a character in Star Trek, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Like, it's written that way in all of the show, most of the shows. So it's important to treat it as such. And these characters clearly love their ship.
Yeah, Cerritos is our friend.
Yeah. So in their last little discussion here is that they should go to an area that's off limits that they've never been to before. So they're just going to sneak off to it. And that seems like a cool idea. Where would you guys think is, completely off limits on a starship for active members of its crew?
Senior
Probably
staff
the-
mess.
Okay.
Well,
Senior staff
okay.
mess, that's a good guess.
The armory where they keep all the weapons.
I don't know. Baby Bear seems like he's got the run of the security operation stuff.
What about wherever
Baby
they store
bear.
the torpedoes? Possibly,
Okay.
maybe. A captain's ready room.
Captain's ready room, definitely not a place you can just wander.
Do not
into
loiter
anywhere.
in the captain's ready room.
Unless you're Mariner. A Mariner has access to it, apparently.
Right. Yeah. Well.
Well,
And why? Because of course.
Mom.
but let's
Right,
talk
yeah.
I know we're delineating again, but let's talk for 2 seconds about Mariner's relationship with her mom that gets her that privilege there this season. Last season, she was the nuisance. This season, she's working with her mom. They're getting along pretty well. They're having their back and forths, and this episode kicks off a back. And we get to, why we're on this back before we can move forward again.
Well, and yes, you're right. We do. And Mariner has been established as a character that she doesn't. She thinks she's a Kirk-esque kind of rogue character.
Oh, they
And-
literally have that discussion later in the
Yeah,
episode.
we get
Yeah.
there in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, we'll get there. Sorry, I jumped
Oh,
ahead, but
it's so
that's just
good.
her attitude. It's that she doesn't care. She's not trying to get promoted. This is where she wants to be. So she's just, at some point, she stopped giving a shit.
She's brazen.
Brazen. Oh, yeah.
So we cut back to Freeman's ready room, and the senior staff are still
Fuming.
complaining vociferously to their captain. Freeman says that their complaints are noted and is like ready to dismiss the whole thing. But Freeman takes Mariner aside and furiously tells her that she can't do this kind of thing, right? Like more fury with Mariner than she had towards Ransom or any of her other crew, because she's a mom.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But before they're able to get any deeper into this like personal argument, a red alert starts blaring.
Yeah, but I also think that like as a captain, she's allowed to dress down an ensign who went way outside their ballpark, and to specifically to cause dissent on the ship. Like
Yeah, no
that's-
disagreement at all.
That's you're not just my daughter, but you went so far over the line here.
I think there is still a boundary that Freeman has with her daughter, and she's only going to go so far, and then it's you're beyond insubordinate. Right now, it's just rude and disrespectful. So yeah, and also I am your mother,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. No, it was perfect. I thought it was a very realistic scene for like motherhood. where you're
Yes.
having a conflict with your kid. Like it makes sense. Like it shows though that Mariner is also hurt by this whole thing, right? Like she didn't even tell me she was leaving. Like I'm her daughter. If I have a new
Yeah.
captain, what's going to happen to me?
And this goes back to
Oh,
Mariner's abandonment issues.
Yeah, for sure.
I like how we totally just said the same thing at the same time. Like, yes.
Guys, this happens a lot more often than we like to admit.
Yeah, you only get to see 1 hour at a time, but like, the three of us are twins. Wait, triplets? Whatever.
Triplets.
The
All right,
three
so-
of us are twins.
So red alert. When red alert's a big deal, so
Yep.
they run back outside. Everybody immediately starts back to work. There's no more bitching and moaning at that point. They go back outside, and Boymore reports that the Lapirian sun has emitted a huge solar flare, and it's going straight for the unstable planetoid. And that sounds like bad news, because then we see what happens a moment later
Yep.
with beautiful effects. The flare blows up that planetoid, and it explodes in this massive wave.
This
Which reminds us of-
purple- It looks
It
so
should
good.
remind us of 3 other times that we've seen an Excelsior class in a similar wave. In Undiscovered Country, we see the Excelsior caught in the Praxis explosion wave.
Yep.
In Generations, we see the Enterprise B in the Nexus, again being slammed by purple energy waves.
Right.
And in the Voyager episode Flashback, I think is the name of it, we also see the ship being hit in that nebula with a wave
Yes.
of purple energy.
So what is it with
I had to
Excelsior
take a
class of just
screenshot.
getting hammered by blast waves? And I want to talk about what happened to the
The
ship
planetoid? Oh, okay.
in this scene. Well, and not the planetoid, but to the ship. Why didn't they raise? Why didn't they raise the shields? Why didn't
Their
Captain
shields were
order
up.
They were up. Okay.
We see it hit. We see things bouncing off the shields. But think of it as like an EMP, which is what the character describes it as. It ends up frying their computers, so you can
Yeah.
only hold that back for so long.
Right. Right. I like
Imagine
how
imagine if Praxis had been like in the same system as the Enterprise or the Excelsior when it blew up, right? Like that would have been rough,
Ooh,
right?
Yeah.
The Excelsior was on Federation side of territory, it's light years away, and it still shook the shit out of the Excelsior.
Well,
so
and this
And
was
it
the
was visible and everything.
This was the perfect Chekhov's gun. Also, there's this unstable planetoid in the region. That's just gonna be fine. No one's gonna care
No,
about that.
Dag, there hasn't been a Chekhov cameo in this show yet. That's not till next season. He'll shoot his gun in that episode.
Chekhov didn't even
Yeah.
shoot his gun in the episode in which he had a gun.
Isn't it great?
For those of you
the irony.
that don't know,
But he does fire torpedoes at that rock inside of motion picture
Yeah.
with a trigger.
belay
Which was awesome.
that phaser order. You
Alright,
are
so cutting-
strong.
Cutting back to the episode, the Archimedes gets hit by the plasma wave. Their warp core is offline. Their power backups all offline. They've
Yeah.
got nothing, right? And they realize that the ship is drifting back towards the planet. And an ensign on the bridge asks the question why are we still moving? Inertia, because space. Nothing's there to stop you until you hit the planet.
Yeah.
So Sonia Gomez is very much the whole well, everyone get to work. We can fix this. Very optimistic Starfleet attitude towards it. There's no time for despair and dismay. It's just get to work. So
I like the toppling end over end that the ship was doing.
the tumble.
Just-
Yeah,
Yeah, tumbling towards the planet.
And
I
they're
don't
really
know why I like that. I just did.
they're really lucky
was
that
cool.
they only got caught in 2 vectors of inertia. They could have been caught in 3 and
Oh
been
my God.
tumbling end over end around
side to side.
That would have
At
just
that
been
point, I'd have
terrible.
to just be like, turn off the view screen. I can't look at this. I'm gonna be
Also-
sick.
I'm just
What?
noting here that everything on the ship is offline, but gravity still works, internal comms,
we know why gravity still works. They maintain a charge.
and what's the
Life
third
support?
thing?
Life support.
Okay, so what's the fourth thing?
The view screen.
The thing that stops you from becoming tomato paste against the wall when the ship.
Oh,
burns.
the inertial dampeners.
Inertial dampeners. Yeah.
Those are that's the big thing for me.
Yeah.
So
But those are all
they-
space magic. It's fine.
Basically, the things that are absolutely required to still work somehow still work.
Did we ever see their ship's comms actually work?
Yeah, she does a hail from the bridge, telling everybody to get to the back of the ship.
Oh, that's true. She does try that, but that was after they've been doing some repairs.
Yeah, but I don't know if it actually, in retrospect, I don't know if she's actually talking to everybody on the ship or just telling the bridge crew.
The bridge.
Yeah, ambiguous.
It was everyone, and honestly, that was not going to work.
No, obviously not. But there's a better chance there than not. But no, so like the grav plating, we've heard that all the way since Enterprise, right? It maintains a charge even if the ship loses all power.
Yeah.
So it'll hold you on the ground for like hours and hours, probably longer by the 24th border of the 25th century. Inertial dampeners, if anything's still going to have emergency power, it should be that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. The otherwise should be orange paste. Orange and paste.
There's a great line there where they talk about the situation that they're in, and the captain's like, all right, I'm acknowledging this. Also, that's enough existential dread for the day. Let's get to work.
I like that.
That was just really cool, like, meta on what would have normally been a commercial break. Just, Captain, we're screwed. And everybody just stares ominously as the music rises to crescendo and then goes to the end. And the red shirts turn around and go, why are they just staring at the view screen like that? What's going on?
So we've got a great next scene where it's the Cerritos' bridge crew like realizing what happened to the Archimedes, and that they actually state there are 20 hours until it crashes into the planet, and the impact itself is going to be devastating, catastrophic damage to the planet. Makes sense. You drop a warp core on a planet, not good. So Freeman originally asked about using the tractor beam, but Cerritos can't get close enough because of the isotopes inside of the debris field. Okay. Then they ask about like flying through. Ransom responds no. If even something as small as a pomegranate hits the shields, their systems would be going down the same way as the Archimedes' was. Boimler notes that if they try to put up their shields while going through it, it will attract shit at them anyways. So all their bad ideas are getting thrown out. Kayshawn then proposes going around the thing by using warp, which, we don't really hear why that's a bad idea.
But everybody thinks it's a bad idea.
Yeah, everybody seems very clear that's a bad idea, but it doesn't sound like a bad idea to me.
Yeah, go around it. Why was
okay?
Go over it.
You want me to theory craft the why? Maybe the explosion had some sort of subspace effect. So going to warp now might cause more damage than good.
That would have been an interesting take, because my brain went there too. I was like, what happened? Because they said that energy draws that plasma to them. If they went to warp, they should have said something like, it'll create an isolytic tear. And then everybody knows what an isolytic tear is. That's bad. Can't go to warp.
Insurrection.
Yeah.
Right.
Very bad. Well, why would they have to go to warp? You would think that impulse, because this wave is not traveling faster than the speed of light.
No, but they only have 20 hours.
Light either.
Huh?
They only have 20 hours.
Light.
Right. How do you guys talk at the same time twice in a row?
You first.
I think you two are joined at the brain. I would have thought that with under impulse speed, they could have got around it. But again, they don't say why that's a bad idea, just that it's a bad idea.
The narrative drive prevents it.
Yeah.
The impulse doesn't go that fast, right? Like, it can't go faster. It can't go speed of light, right? And I expect that wave is propagating at either speed of light, if not slightly faster, because it seems to have had some subspace effects anyways. Well, we know Praxis's wave was going faster than light.
There's definitely a lot of very interesting things about the speed of whatever happens here happens. Like, the solar flare goes off. If a solar flare went off on the sun right now, it'd take 8.5 minutes for us to know.
Yes.
And if it was somehow, that energy of that solar flare went to blowing up a planetoid between us and there, it would use some of that solar energy trying to propel these suddenly massive rocks, which would then, have to interact with the ship at some point. And so there's just a lot of imagination being taken with the speed of
Suspend your disbelief.
Reaction.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
It is, because you don't have the debris heading towards the planet.
Well, let me help.
The speed of light.
Let me help. Instead of it presuming that the planetoid is near Earth, presume it's closer to Mercury's orbit, right? So it's only 16 seconds from the sun at that point, right? It's much closer, right, at light speed. Cool. At that point, when it explodes, the planetoid itself is made up of something that is space magic. Radiolytic isotopes are part of the planet itself, right? When it explodes, it sets off an explosion that is faster than light itself, right? Same way like a dilithium bomb would have effects on subspace, right? Same kind of concept. So it blows up there. Now, as to why the planet isn't affected by it, the chunks themselves are terrifying when they hit energy sources, but there's no energy source in a planet's atmosphere. The planet's atmosphere just gets them really, really hot, and they melt. The chunks themselves aren't that large. Pomegranate-sized, maybe bus-sized. That all burns up in an atmosphere. So the planet's mostly fine from the debris. The real fear is the warp core on that Obina class about to impact the planet's surface.
Squeak, squeak, squeakly deep.
It's Sorry.
The two
so there's my little attempt to rationalize it for you.
Let's move forward. There's Big Bad, and we gotta fix it, and we get a whole lot of troubleshooting, and not even Mariner can figure this out for the captain like she did when there was a big savey moment the last time this happened.
Yeah, so, Mariner has no notes on this one. Got nothing.
Yep. So Freeman
Freeman
leaves the bridge. Mariner runs after her. They go to the captain's yacht where Tendi and Rutherford have to hide because they're in that place that they're not supposed to be. That wasn't the armory or the ready room or even the senior mess. And Freeman is ready to take the ship out. This is the
most we've seen of a captain's yacht besides Insurrection in all of Star Trek.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah,
we know that the Enterprise D had the Calypso. We know that Voyager had the Aero Shuttle and that Nova class doesn't have a Wave Runner. We know that these things are essentially captain shuttles, but the only one we've ever seen was the Cousteau, which was Picard's on the Enterprise E. We see it for like a couple minutes in Insurrection. That's it.
Yep.
Here we see the Freeman's one, and we don't even know its name, but it's nice to know that even a California class gets a captain's yacht. But we don't see it on the bottom of the hull, which is interesting.
You're right, we don't, because we see the one on the Galaxy class on the Enterprise D. We see that. We see the... And why didn't... I remember there was some kind of story or reason why in Voyager... Okay, so you created the Delta Flyer. What about the frickin' captain's yacht that was already there under the...
Supposedly it was never finished. Like, they left space dock without it in complete status, so it's there. It's essentially just like a placeholder. Yeah. But as far as being able to see it, so the Nova class, which you can see right here, see that little triangle above my shoulder on the saucer? That's the Nova class's captain's yacht equivalent, which is called a Wave Rider shuttle. So, like... Sorry. But yeah, so...
That's your doggy, that's all right. You know, having fun with his toy.
Playing with his toys, you know. But yeah, so Pupper's there. But yeah, so we finally get to see some of the captain's yacht, which is neat, and we see that Freeman is trying to take the shuttle out and try and go save the Archimedes alone, and Mariner's trying to be like, don't be crazy, I'll fly it. You haven't flown anything in like a decade. And the mom is like, I was the hyper scoop champion when I was in the academy, and it's like, yes, that's a very Picard thing to say, but you're still dumb for trying to do this on your own. How many times did Picard mention that he won the Academy Marathon, or did somebody mention that he won the Academy Marathon? It was all the time.
It was always the Academy Marathon. It kind of reminded me of Al Bundy and the 6 touchdowns in one game kind of thing. If you've seen Married with Children, that was always his bragging point, was at 6 touchdowns in one game. And with these guys, kind of the same thing. Do you do anything in Starfleet besides run marathons? Why couldn't they have thrown in something from Parisi Squares or, I don't know, anything else? It's like all they do is run.
So here's where we get that great scene where Mariner describes herself as just being like a rogue like James T. Kirk, right? And Freeman says that you're not as confident as him. You need to let your guard down. You need to drop your defenses. And that's when Rutherford and Tendi barge in and are like, hold on. That's an idea. Let's drop our defenses and go through the debris cloud. That's where he argues that they need to remove all of the armor from the ship. And the inner hull will protect them. And that's their plan that they're going to try, which is something novel we've never seen in Star Trek. The closest I can think of is the NX-01 Enterprise had to drop a couple plates of their external hull when they had Romulan mines attached to it, which was neat.
I want to share just one observation about inside the shuttle. When Mariner's arguing and it's pointing at her, there's an MSD of the shuttle, and it has the name cut off at the top. It says Shuttlecraft something, and I can't read the rest of it because the letters, there's enough to be able to say, okay, that says Shuttlecraft. And then the next scene, it does say Shuttlecraft there, but I can't see what the rest of the word is.
Quick, somebody message Mike McMahon and ask him the name of it.
Let's do it.
Good idea. I thought that was a very novel idea I never thought of the outer hull being like that. Actual removable in case of emergency
Plating.
components.
I like the fact that the display for that is the same shape as the engineering table in TNG. It's pretty cool.
I love the fact that it has a double hull at all, right? Like, in most depictions of Starfleet ships taking combat damage, that you don't see the difference because there's no real need to show it. But here, by actually removing the combat armor, which they don't need, it's very clear what the purpose of that outer hull is for. It's just a blade of armor, defenses. It's there to block a disruptor bolt or a phaser beam. Whereas the inner hull,
it's also there for warp travel.
Sure, it's everything. It's probably radiation hardened as well, right? Like to block out harmful rays. However, you don't need it if you're only going to lose it for a couple hours to go save a planet, so they start shedding it. This is actually the same way some submarines in the real world work too, right? Like Russian nuclear submarines all have double hulls. The outer hull is just a pressure vessel, then the inner hull is what maintains atmosphere and such. And they can actually have water filled in between the two.
Oh, I did not know that. That's interesting.
Raising and removing ballast, isn't it?
Yeah, they use it for ballast as well.
Okay, wow.
American subs don't do it. It's not necessary. We just use one hull with both layers to it, but they have an actual space in between the two.
Interesting. Now I know. And knowing is half the battle.
Hey, you want more military facts? Just sign up to my newsletter. All right, so going back to the crew, they run this plan by Billups, who confirms that the ship can take the beating. The plan could work. They have to just get every single officer to start work on it now because it requires everybody in the crew stripping things off because it's so much work.
Right now, right away, even you poor ballroom dancers.
They postpone the competition.
Yeah, but they get everybody, and they make the cool captain speech to rouse everybody to action because we're Starfleet. Everybody's up, everybody's in uniform, everybody's out.
Spacewalking all over the ship.
Now, I'm sure that it was for just being able to have a cool scene, and I know they did it in Enterprise and doing it now, but I would think that the controls to eject part of the hull plating would be inside the ship and wouldn't require jumping through all these hoops to do.
Let's think it through, right? Like, how many times is the ship going to need to generally remove a part of its outer hull that way, right? The only times you can think of, at least for me, are things like repairs in a space dock or repairs after like combat, right? Where the hull plating itself has been damaged heavily, right? And in neither one of those does it really matter if it's from outside or inside.
I wouldn't want any of those things to be able to be removed by voice command or touchpad.
Imagine somebody gets the computer to do it, right? Like somebody hacks the ship's computer on the inside and there's like it ablates all hull armor or something, right?
But that won't do it because they have the big turn knob.
That's what I'm saying is, I when you would ask, why do they have to go outside to do this? The reason they have to go outside and do this is because you can't take a nail out without getting the hammer in there and pulling. You have to be able to, you have to really want to take the plating off this ship.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's like
it's like trying to eject your warp core, right? There's a reason you can't do it from the.
You can't do it from anywhere.
You can only do it from the bridge. Well, you can do it from the bridge, you can do it from engineering, but you can't do it from anywhere else, right?
Right.
There's probably a good reason why you might want to do it from somewhere else, but you can't because it's a big fucking deal.
Right.
So don't do it.
And the reason the reason the warp core can be a button press is because the hull plating isn't going to explode and kill everybody. The warp core, you're going to need somebody's authorization to get that thing to go and go now before the ship is in danger. So there's a reason
hull plating was being removed by ensigns and lieutenants across the ship.
Right.
Yeah.
And doing the little first contact, pull, twist, buttons, twist back, eject. That's a really cool confirmation there, but you're basically confirming to the ship that we're removing the nails on this vitally essential component that probably isn't going to explode.
I never thought of it that way. Like removing the nail, you're right. You've got to do that from the outside of where the nail is and not from the inside.
It's a matter of barrier of entry, right? If you make everything too easy, it is easier to make a mistake, right? So by making there be a big hurdle there, it makes it less likely that this gets done willy-nilly. So they don't.
And
I would have thought the hurdle would have been the whole pulling the thing, twisting it, pushing it back in.
See, and I'm thinking about like the Enterprise D saucer reattachment. There were pylons that interlocked with the two modules. It wasn't just like maglev.
Hey, Big J, here's another take for you, right? Remember at the very end of the episode when they have to release the one last plate and they have to do it from the inside, not the outside?
Yeah.
It was a plate that had a control panel on the inside and the outside. Maybe every plate on the ship has a control panel on the inside and the outside. It's just faster to go from outside control to outside control than from inside control to inside control.
Okay, because when you're out on the hull, it's more or less you're able to go as the crow flies, whereas inside the ship,
you've got to go from Jeffrey's tube to the bedroom to that access panel through that guy's bedroom over, etc. Right? I think that makes sense.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Very good.
Cool. All right. So they start stripping the ship, or rather, they agree that they're going to start stripping the ship. But Billups realizes that Rutherford is having issues with his vision because he's kind of having a bad time, and he explains that he can't see properly because of these pop-ups because his implant's memory has actually run out. And he doesn't want to wipe it because he's been making backups of all of his memories that he has with 10D because in case something happens to him again, he doesn't want to forget these things.
He's been doing 3 backups.
Yeah.
Right.
And Billups advises that he should live his life, make new memories, right?
I want to point out that Rutherford's triple redundancy there reflects Chief O'Brien's triple redundancy from that one episode of Deep Space Nine where the Cardassians were there. I forget what that was called, but they basically reopened the wormhole and there was Trakor's third prophecy and all that stuff. But she was surprised by like, why do you have triple redundancy? And Miles was like, that's standard for Starfleet.
Now here's my gripe. Here's my IT guy gripe. One, there's nothing wrong with triple redundancy. Okay, that's great. But not all in the same place.
I agree.
It would not make sense to have your original and your 2 backups or whatever on the same hard drive, because at that point you're really not doing anything. If you're really serious about redundancy, then you have the original on your computer, you have a thumb drive with another, and really, to be perfectly honest with you, you're doing a cloud backup. So I would think that if this stuff was so important to him, of course, naturally, you wouldn't keep all these copies because he's worried about losing it. Well, you're going to lose it.
I totally agree. That's why I have 3,000 pads, one with an MP3 each.
So I'm right there with you, Big J. I completely agree. The smarter thing to do would be what Arium was doing, right? Deposit memories into like the ship's computer. Then you have a copy in your brain and then a copy in your implant, right? That's 3 copies. So I think that's a much wiser way. Maybe Rutherford as an ensign, though, doesn't have access to that much storage on the ship's computer.
Well,
maybe.
That's something that.
But I'm with you though.
Hey, Captain, can I save my memories on the hard drive here? There's plenty of space.
Or just ask Billups. Billups will definitely tell him yes. He's his friend. He's his friend.
Right, but you're telling me that there's no external media on the ship to be able to do a backup, and I get it. It's part of the plot, but
all I need is a killer
it just bothers me when I see stuff like that because, I work in that. There is nothing more crazy than, and I used to work for an MSP, and there's so many stories about, well, do you have any backups of this? So like, yeah, it was on the same hard drive that died. Oh my God, really?
So our next scene is this neat scene where everybody's like, it reminds me a lot of in Nemesis when they're prepping for battle, right? Yeah. Where they put up the shield around the warp core. They all start stocking up with rifles. Here, it's the opposite though. It's move all the volatile materials into the core of the ship. They remove the ship's view screen. They start moving patients around. Like, you see people being moved in bio beds. Like, it is a cool scene where they are literally just prepping for everything that can go wrong, might go wrong here, which was neat.
Tell me again, why did they remove the view screen?
Because it's going to be off.
Yeah, you can't see anything. We're going to remove the view screen so to have...
Yeah,
doing it
so
the
you can actually
old-fashioned
see.
way. And the inside of the bridge gets pummeled. All the little rocks and micrometeoroid things. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, that seemed kind of freaking dangerous to me.
So we go back to the Archimedes and we're trying to jump start a shuttle and it doesn't work.
The shuttle is named the Adonis, which is nice because that's a reference to Archimedes himself. So
And
that's fun.
Who mourns for Adonis?
Good callback.
Cool. So they've got 7 hours left, and Gomez is talking about how she will give it her all until the last second. Very Starfleet. Her XO tries to talk her into go taking a nap, get some sleep.
She's like, we'll be
Gomez
getting plenty of
answers
rest in 7 hours anyway.
And then the XO catches on that that's a joke, and so forth and so on. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you did there.
So we get a really neat scene after that of the Cerritos losing more of its armor, still shedding chunks of things. We see parts of the warp nacelles coming off. The pylons are all exposed. The warp coils themselves are showing. Very pretty stuff all over. And Billups is stuck on a plate. Billups can't get one to release. It's fused, so they have to release it from the inside. But if they're going to make it to the Archimedes in time, they have to start moving now, which means they've only got limited amount of time to get the plate to come off, because one plate will attract meteoroids from the radiolytic field,
Right.
and it'll ruin their entire attempt. So they're in a rush.
I kind of thought that the exposed nacelles would be a problem. No? Yeah?
Not with the power off. Because
everything's already turned off.
They turn everything off and they go to manual helm for thrusters only and
RCS
stuff.
only even. It's actually a really cool scene when we see Ransom piloting and we see the RCS reaction thrusters popping off. Really, really nice.
Yep. One of the things
that was from a TNG episode. The one I always want to say, it was Samaritan Snare. No, I think I always want to say that one because it sounds like it would have been the title for that episode, but it's not. They're in that asteroid field that they can't get out of. Another ship was stuck, and they all died on there.
The Promelian battle cruiser one.
That's
and
Booby Trap.
Picard.
Booby Trap. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Booby Trap, and they're doing the thruster thing.
There's something
of that.
There's something I just noticed about this scene where Billups catches the Bajoran before she flies off into space and brings her back down, and then realizes that this panel isn't going to come off. If you look at this, they're on the underside of the saucer. It's upside down. I didn't notice that the first 2 times I watched this, and I'm looking at it and I'm just like, those nacelles are going
yeah.
Oh, I missed
they're
it
upside
too.
down on the saucer, just like in First Contact.
And
they do a good job of showing us where they are during these scenes.
Yeah.
I think another thing that wouldn't happen is that when you're running, there is a point where neither foot has contact with the ground, even if it's the smallest moment. So would he really be able to
inertia
run in the...
Of course, inertia. Remember, if the magnet on the thing doesn't require contact, right? And you're still moving, so unless he's jumping out into space, he's still going to land right back on the ship.
So there is an amount of space that the boot going to be magnetic enough,
of course,
to keep you
beta testing,
back
quality
there,
assurance would have seen to that.
Okay, yeah,
QT.
I was just kind of thinking about that part. Can you really run that fast in those things and not?
I think the Expanse does a better job of showing how magnetic boots would really work, right?
Okay.
Like they actually turn off when they're like lifted off the ground, right? But in Starfleet or in Star Trek in general, they don't seem to turn off when you let go. So they may not even be completely magnetic. They may be even gravitic boots, right? Like they may use more than just magnets to keep you pinned. But yeah, I mean,
it could be strong
works for me.
magnet.
Yeah, it could just be magnetic, but it could be more. We don't even know. It's never really been explored.
Gotcha.
Ultra neodymium.
In fact, they even call them grav boots sometimes, right? So maybe they are gravitic boots or gravity boots. They attach you to something with gravity rather than with magnets.
Yeah, Star Trek 6, they had gravity boots. That's how it was described.
I love the heads-up display that Ransom gets. It definitely feels taken right out of Into Darkness.
Yep. But the joystick feels right out of Insurrection again.
Oh yeah. I also feel like this is like an artistic achievement for the graphics team, just to like, we're gonna strip off this CG model that you built, so now you have to show us the wireframe underneath, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, the graphics part was probably hating that idea that the
But
writers
it
wrote for that.
turned out so beautiful, though, right?
Mhm.
Like seeing the coils inside of the nacelles, seeing all of the copper under everything, like the whole thing just looks sick. I was very impressed with the artistic achievement of this episode. I hope it gets awards for it.
And
So-
Rutherford can't see anymore, so he has to delete his backup memory.
But again, if you'd had off-site backup, but no.
Not allowed to have cloud backup. Not allowed. Like
Let's
on a
get to the
submarine,
point, though,
you're not
right?
allowed to have internet service. So I mean, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Let's get to the point, though, right? He deletes his memory, and he gets a memory that he doesn't think he was supposed to see,
Yeah.
which is of a couple of people talking over him in shadows about how they've implanted a fake memory into his subconscious that'll make him think that the procedure was elective. And then it cuts.
I like
Two
that
cetacean
setup.
ops. And I love the cetacean ops room because they have floaties and little rubber balls and buckets of fish and rocks just hanging out.
Wait, what do you think of that scene, though? What do you think that means, though, Dag? Don't move us away from that so quickly. Is this Section 31? Is this Klingon intelligence? Like, what is going on here with that? What are you hiding?
I was so trying to not have to talk about this. Okay, so that admiral that arrested Freeman at the end, he's the voice of the guy who's talking over in the memory that's uncovered.
Yes.
Oh.
You knew that already. You don't
didn't-
side eye me in that attitude.
I just wanted you to say it, so I didn't have to.
Ah, well, there you go. So, home fry admiral or captain
You're our
guy.
QAnon correspondent, so.
Yeah, he's definitely in on these shenanigans.
I'm glad we finally got to see cetacean ops. It's
Yeah.
been mentioned.
Hey,
know-
yeah, it's such a cool thing.
I'm geeking out because the emblem of cetacean ops on the floor is like a killer whale flowing into
I
an
didn't even
ocean
see
thing.
it.
And it's derived a lot from the Cetacean Institute of Star Trek 4. So I
Which makes
love
sense.
that. I love
I'll
it
bet you
so
that
much.
the doctor from there was the one who led the whole creation of cetacean ops as a thing.
So Jillian, just headcanon, Jillian Taylor is the founder in chief of Cetacean Ops. And really, honestly, she was only 30 then, so she could be like 130 now. Oh my gosh. Get her back as like, well, yes, I founded it. Just
Back
like
to
a
my day.
130-year-old Dr. McCoy showing up on the Enterprise
Oh,
D.
God.
It'd be great to see.
Well,
Jillian
she spent the
Taylor.
first 30 years in the 20th century, so who knows what kind of damage the pollutants there did to her.
Yeah.
She might not have been able to make it to 130.
We can fix all of
True.
that in Star Trek.
Okay,
So with
so
cetacean ops, is it safe for me to assume that that's not on every ship?
Well, it was on the Enterprise D, and it's on a California class, and they
Yeah.
are responsible for navigation, as it's canon now, which had only been theorized before, that the reason they have cetaceans on there is because they can, help navigate the ship. So here, it's true. So maybe every ship has a cetacean ops.
also just a
How?
point to make for us, right? We don't know if the two officers that were in cetacean ops are actually dolphins. They might be alien races that just kind of passingly look like them. We have no reason to
Right.
assume otherwise yet. We do know their names are Matt and Kamolu, which is cool.
Yeah, they're cetaceans.
but-
I
Yeah.
love that they were in uniform.
I love their uniforms, man, and their science uniforms too, which is interesting because navigators are usually command.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, so can someone tell me this? How does this department help with navigation when you're
They think in 3D. Remember, if you're an aquatic species, you move in 3D natively. We, as a
Right.
terrestrial one, move in 2D natively. So maybe they help with planning or plotting routes in 3D.
Okay. All right.
So
I
in
didn't know
sci-fi, there's a bunch of things. There's a bunch of like movies and games and books that have mentioned like cetacean species or aquatic species being great at this. My favorite example of it is in a game called Sword of the Stars, where they have a dolphin race called the Lure, right? And their shtick is literally, we think natively in 3 dimensions. You come from a planet. Everything for you is flat. We can dive down deeper, and that's just part of our behavior. So they're just better at maneuvering. And I think that that's kind of what the approach is for this.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, the fact that they finally showed it is great because they've mentioned it since yesterday's Enterprise.
Wow, that was in yesterday's Enterprise. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that.
Yep, it's in the subtitles even.
So
Okay.
we need to hit this button down at the bottom of the cetacean tub, and Mariner's jumping for joy. She's gonna do it, and everybody else like, no, you need to go talk to your mom and sort this out because she's gonna be up there freaking out, and if you can't like calm her down, we could put the ship in danger. You go. Boimler's got this. Mariner accepts in sort of an argumentative way, but finally heads off, and Boimler dons the hero mode again. As we've discussed in this, like, this is like the 7th time out of 10 episodes that Boimler has saved the day.
He is the man. Boimler's the man. I think we all underestimated his character and what he was going to be in this series, and we've been proven wrong.
It's okay. The future thinks Boimler is the laziest, most disorganized crew member in Federation history, right?
Yeah.
One fun thing to cover here is the personality that Matt and Kamalu have is pretty cool. They are very horny.
Yeah.
Like, they want Rutherford to jump in and just get all sweaty with them and, like, go skinny dipping. Like, everything is a bit twisted for them, which is fine. Everybody can have their kinks. That's cool for them. I just think it's a funny play on the whole meme that dolphins are essentially rape monsters, which is fair.
Right.
But they're not.
We don't even know what they are. They could be
bad.
beluga whales, they could be dolphins, they could be whatever. But yeah, that's the joke that they're playing on, which I think is pretty funny.
Yeah.
But there's one funny scene here that we skipped over, or bit that we skipped over here. Somebody asks, why can't the two cetaceans just go push the button? And they start screaming at them in like squeaks and whale song and using their flippers because they don't have hands, which I thought was pretty funny.
Because they're like the displays down there weren't designed for flippers.
Okay, so if this location wasn't designed for them to be able to get to, then why the hell is it in a spot that's underwater? That's an extension of cetacean ops.
Because on what mission is somebody going to have to go down there to release that panel that isn't going to be in a starbase or a starship repair facility?
And again,
think it's kind of silly.
It had an external option, but the external thing was fused. So here is they were lucky that it wasn't behind somebody's dresser, like 14 feet of uranium in front of it or something, right?
Right.
They could just get to it. They just didn't have the time to do it properly. So no breathing apparatus, no nothing. Or, just in a rush.
There's got to be a trope for this, like, oh, the thing we need is in the worst possible place to get it. Fine.
Oh, okay. I kind of answered my own question. It's because the mechanism to remove the plating, you're right, they're going to be in very inconvenient places. You have to be able to get to them, but that means that there's not a lot of picking and choosing as to where that is on the inside part. Okay. All right.
Yep, that's exactly it. And we already saw they tried it from the external side, and the outside one was fused.
Yeah.
So, okay. So our next scene is just literally Boimler swimming down the tube, pushing himself between things, fighting with the access control, fighting with the pull thing the same way Worf does in First Contact, eventually triumphing, pulling it out, and realizing that his suit has a tear.
Just like Worf.
And he's slowly starting to fill with water.
Yeah. So the obstacles that he had to swim around, was that why was that there? That wasn't part of what was in the hallway. Didn't that get
that's the Galaxy Quest thing. Who put these chompers here? Whoever wrote this episode sucks.
I wouldn't even say there was that much there, right? Like, it's like there's a ladder and there's like some things he had to squeeze through. It's not that bad. I've seen much messier offices.
Honestly, again, the only time that this was expected to be used was in maintenance. That pool was probably drained.
Oh,
there's probably like a connecting quarters tubes for cetacean officers and they're off duty. And that tube's probably drained when it's in maintenance. It's really easy to just climb down, unhinge it, and you're not working against time either. You don't have an ionic plasma storm and a ship that's about to destroy a planet that you got to get down there real quick to do the thing.
True. Okay. Man, you guys
That
are
was a lot of
rocking it
breath.
on all this stuff that I think is ridiculous. You like
We're just coming up with good rationalizations.
smacking them down, smacking
Yeah,
them down.
the audience is wild today.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we get to the scene on the bridge. Mariner arrives at the bridge. Ransom is still navigating. Mariner immediately runs up to her mom, hugs her, apologizes. We get a nice tender scene. Freeman apologizes. She was being a bit of a jerk. And Mariner volunteers to help with navigating, like spotting debris and such. And she takes the opposite side of Jen, on the opposite side of the hole where the view screen used to be. And they're just like spotting things out there, seeing what they can spot,
Yep.
literally. They get this nice moment where they both look at each other, Jen and Beckett, and just like nod, like, we can do this, which is good. That's building. So that's a nice scene, too.
Yep. Boimler passes out trying to get to the surface. We got no idea what happens. Cerritos is going through the crazy field of crazy here. And it looks beautiful. Again, the lighting, the graphics, they're all just super well done.
I really hope this episode is nominated for,
Graphics,
graphics awards for sure.
that'd be great. That'd be really great. Jump back to Cetacean Ops, and Matt and Kamolo bring Boimler to the surface. His blowhole's broken. Did y'all catch that?
Mm-hmm.
That's so
Or the
good.
what?
His blowhole.
His
is broken.
blowhole's broken. He ain't breathing. But
There
Tendy's
was-
in medical, and she knows what to do.
Mm-hmm. There was one small little thing I just thought of, because we keep talking about the manual flying of the ship through the debris field. And I thought this when I first watched it, and I went back to the scene just to confirm. So Ransom is sitting in his chair, not the captain's chair.
Mhm.
If you're flying in manual, why wouldn't you sit in the chair that's directly head on instead of at that angle he would be at? Even though it's not much of an angle, why would he stay in his chair and not the captain's chair? Because
'Cause
the captain's chair is true center, his is not.
The display's interactive and can calibrate for ship perspective for him.
Yeah, the HUD adjusts for him.
Well, but why make it harder on yourself? Because you're looking out through the view screen and you're looking out through an angle, but your HUD is like it just seems silly.
They
that
didn't want to
way.
take the captain out of her chair.
That might be the real answer, but like honestly, like when I'm playing Star Trek Bridge Crew, I'm not actually on the bridge of a starship, but the display is calibrated such that I am positioned.
That's fair, too.
It's easy to be.
Big J, you've seen those 3D TVs, right? The newer ones that let you actually see 3D from multiple angles.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the same kind of thing, right? The HUD on his helmet just covers it, so you can't even tell that there's an angle that you're looking at from. It just
Okay.
masks the angle for you or something. But even then, I agree with you. The smarter choice would be to do it from the captain's chair. If the captain's chair also has a manual steering thing, we don't know, it would be smarter. But really, rule of cool here: let the guy sit in his chair, let the captain be in her chair, and so forth and so on.
Captain probably had her own joystick, honestly.
But she's not a good pilot,
Everybody-
as Mariner pointed out many times.
Right.
But yeah, so in the scene, I actually loved how we could actually see the RCS thrusters firing the 4 different directions independently. It was very interactive. You could see the ship like twisting as it did things.
Yeah.
Very well done.
And it was really cool to have the camera be locked to the ship perspective, so that when it did that, the whole universe spun. You're still seeing the saucer section where it is, and the outside just.
It was very
adjusted.
Battlestar Galactica, like fighter
yeah.
cam kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Really liked it.
Like
Like
the
that.
Vipers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, don't do that all the time. Do that for things that are appropriate, but it was nice.
Yep.
I'd
Cool,
like to
so
see the outside move. Yeah, sorry.
And then
We cut back to Cetacean Ops, and we have Tendi using CPR to resuscitate our poor Boimler. And it works, saves his life. And then Kamolu immediately invites him to go skinny dipping, because Kamolu. And dazed Boimler mentions that he saw Koala, which is a reference to the first season episode where somebody ascends into becoming like a godlike energy being. And
Why is there a
the
koala?
Yeah.
Why is he
So-
smiling?
What does he know?
It's a good self-reference.
And Tendi, being aware of what's happening, is like, you should just keep that to yourself.
So
Back
we
to
get
the
to a
bridge.
nice, scary piece on the bridge where a piece of debris hits the ship. A big piece of debris hits the ship. We see a nice gash in the saucer, though it doesn't look like it really ruptures the inner pressure hull, but it definitely like dents it, kind of like the front of my car.
It goes back to what Billups says. We'll take a beating, but we can do it.
So they like are rattled, and it looks like Mariner's thrust out from the front, which is terrifying. But Jen makes her way out, runs to catch her, grabs her, and pulls her back. And then there's more debris coming right at them, so it's very short-lived, kind of like celebratory moment. But we did see this cool scene where Mariner has her life saved by her ship's nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You never know who's going to save your life. One other. I'm full of gripes tonight. Today. I don't know why.
You
I did
definitely
not
seem
wait-
to be. Did you hate this episode, Big J?
No, I love the episode. It's just I get the whole suspension of disbelief, but there were, in my opinion, so many things that we had to suspend disbelief on that may have kind of been questionable as to how
What now?
realistic this is.
What now,
Right.
Big J?
Okay, so now it's the debris, the piece of debris that hits Ransom's mask or his helmet and cracks it. I'm not sure how fast they're going, but it was my impression that you don't have to have much speed at all in space for any size object to be mortally.
No, so it's not
Dangerous.
quite that way. So the thing with space is that everything ends up moving fast if it's in orbit of something long enough. So for example, the ISS, I believe, had a fleck of paint, like a literal fleck of paint. So it has no mass whatsoever, but it made a 3-inch deep hole into the glass, like the thick glass that they use for viewing out, because of the speed it was going at. So speed matters speed matters as much as mass, right? But you got to have one or the other. The little piece that bumped into the glass or whatever it was made out of that Ransom's mask is probably is more reinforced than what's on the ISS now. The chunk itself definitely wasn't moving as fast as the paint fleck that hit the ISS, right? It hadn't had time to be up in orbit. It was moving in the same direction generally that they were, so it really wasn't going all that relatively fast. I don't know. It reminded me more of the scene from Into Darkness where Kirk gets a little piece of rock in his helmet too, and I think that also happens to Michael Burnham at one point too when she's flying around in her suit. So like, I think it's just a reference to other things. But yeah, not everything in space is going to be serious. It's all about like relative speed and mass.
Okay. All right. I will just shut up, Big J, and just enjoy the episode. Quit nitpicking.
That's what I had to do the first 2 times.
Some nitpicking is good. I have my nitpick session coming up. Don't you worry.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, some nitpicking is just rule of cool stuff. Like that was just like, oh, he lost his HUD now. Can he still steer? And now he's got to
Yeah.
actually steer, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So now he wishes he was sitting in the
This-
captain's chair. That was
Exactly.
more straightforward.
This was the
Exactly.
Occam's razor of episodes. Everything that did go wrong could go wrong, which isn't
Murphy's Law.
which isn't
Murphy's Law.
Occam's razor. It's Murphy's Law. But the only way to get a right answer on the internet is to give a wrong one first.
It's so true.
It
okay.
is.
Yeah.
Very true.
So
we cut back to the
is
Archimedes.
5 minutes. 5 minutes to crashing into this planet.
And here's where we see Sonia Gomez starting to order her crew to the back of the ship. There's a greater chance that they'll survive in the back of the ship, maybe. It doesn't seem very likely, but maybe, yeah, infinitesimal. But she's an optimist. Her crew refuses, of course, to listen to her at all. So they just stay there with their captain. And then we cut to our first scene and see the Leparians not realizing what's going on, but they see like a shooting star in their atmosphere, and people seem excited for it, which is a terrifying thought considering it's a flying warp bomb.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, warp core bomb. We see the Archimedes start to struggle. We see its nacelle being ripped off, and then out of nowhere, a blue glow of love and friendship envelops it, and it stops its descent.
The Care Bear stare saves the day.
Or just a tractor beam, same thing,
Yep.
Yep.
Tractor beam. Well, why was this suddenly heading straight down to the planet and not spinning like it was.
Friction off the atmosphere.
Yeah, the atmosphere probably straightened it out.
That's probably when she said like all crew
Okay.
to the back of the ship, they had probably run a projection to figure out what angle they're gonna hit, and gone, okay, well the back of the ship's the safest part from the warp core explosion.
Well, it's like the Titanic. Of course, you're going to go to the back of the ship. It'd be the last one to hit the water.
Well, the Titanic cracked in two, so a little more complicated there too.
There's a little bit of that. It didn't have
But
the
yeah.
Titanic this time.
Yeah, thankfully the Cerritos shows up just in the nick of time, saves everyone,
The
has a tractor
bridge
beam.
is freaking ruined again.
Yes. Hey, maybe they'll have another like serious refit, and next season the Cerritos will look even more badass.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we have to get through this episode first to get through the Cerritos speculation for next season.
Cool. All right, so we have another scene where Freeman, Mariner, Ransom, and Shax all beam down to the planet. They start to introduce themselves to the Lapirian leaders. She is very Freeman is very nervous. She starts giving this very like rehearsed sounding of like, I am Captain such and such from the United Federation of Planets, and the Laparian just interrupts her with a big old bear hug, like a loving bear hug, and then just invites them all out for drinks.
So
Like, finally, a party species.
I
Jesus.
need to absolutely call out the Jurassic Park reference that's super obvious here. But if you're watching this, you can see the alien. They have these fans off the side of their head, and then the
Yep.
two crests. This is 100% a Dilophosaur reference from
Oh, yeah.
Jurassic
Like
Park.
Yeah, the one that's spit the
Yep,
stuff at
Black
Newman.
goo, yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
Newman.
All right, so cut to sick bay, and we've got Tendi, who's being treated for her injuries that they suffered, or helping people with their injuries from the traveling through the debris field. And Tendi gets called into the office of Ta'ana, and Tendi is clearly terrified. And Ta'ana tells her that she's actually not being fired. She's not getting thrown off the Cerritos. In fact, she's recommending her for bridge duty as a science officer, just like Jadzia Dax is what
I don't know
Tendi
who the
says.
fuck that is.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is
Like
Ta'ana's
Spock.
response. Yeah, like Spock, because she's old and grizzled and awesome. Tendi, super stoked, hugs Ta'ana. Ta'ana goes, I don't hate this, and then purrs
Yeah.
while hugged.
I'm okay with
That
this.
got me. The purring. That
Yeah,
was
That's
just
pretty
the
cool.
icing on the cake. Hilarious.
I think it's the happiest we've ever seen Ta'ana, besides when
Yes.
she's cuddling with Shax.
Snuggling Shax, yeah.
I still think that's
Okay.
weird.
It
But
was a great
And-
moment.
Oh, I loved it. It was really cool. And then the next scene is my background, which is my favorite scene of the episode because we get to see something we very rarely see. We see a bunch of Starfleet ships working together in a non-combat situation. The only other time I can think of where we really saw this many was after the end of Generations, where you have 3 ships picking up chunks of the Enterprise crew,
correct.
right? And here
Yeah.
we've got like 6 ships, which is great. Love it. So let's call out what we see. We see
Yep.
this beautiful, this side. Beautiful Parliament class over on this side. We see Cerritos directly above my head over here. There's a Oberth class over here who's picking up a nacelle from the Archimedes and probably reattaching it soon after. On the far side, we've got another California class. And then here's the real star of our show. This Nova class right here attached to Cerritos. Now, there has been much of speculation about the size of the Cerritos in the California class. The fan speculation was that it was somewhere around 370 meters or so. The official word from the production company and from Mike McMahon was it's 670-ish or so at full size, making it huge. But here's the problem. The Nova class is a ship we know its size. We know exactly how big it is because we've seen it a couple times, and we've known its size, and it matches. The Nova class is 221 meters. It's
Right.
a significant size compared to the Cerritos in this picture. If it's as big as McMahon says it is, it's not. It just doesn't work. The math here doesn't work out at all. Based on the size
Scale
of the
is
Nova
off.
class, based on the size of the Nova class on this side, it's actually closer to that 360, 370 meter size California class. So
Yeah.
the thing that this does for me is it just tells me that, Star Trek continues to be inconsistent about the scaling of its ships, and I love that because I can just keep ignoring that McMahon says it's 670 meters this way.
Yeah, that is this, and I think that that's something that Star Trek has kind of always done a good job with, is the scale of things are usually like not quite right.
Yeah, I
And-
mean, we've seen bird of preys between the size of like 15 meters and like 650 meters, right? Like,
Yes.
we're inconsistent, so you can pick your headcanon. And my headcanon is justified by this shot here rather than by like what McMahon says, because I don't think Mike McMahon makes any sense when he says that it's that big. So I'm going to pick my headcanon, and I've picked this one because it's in the episode, and I like it.
Yep. Well, it would be nice if they kept things a little more consistent, but
Agreed.
you've got to. When you said the bird of prey, that's great. The
It's
bird
so
of prey
bad.
is the most size-changing ship, I think, in all of Star Trek.
I think it might be one of the most size-taking ships in all science fiction, to be honest. It has had just
Yeah.
that much variety. What do you think, Dag? You're being real quiet and just like looking over here. Oh, he's bored of me. I see. That's fair.
I am not bored of you. I'm realizing that I skipped over my background, which is the mirror of Boimler reaching out when the Titan saved, the Cerritos. Now
Oh,
the Cerritos
yes.
saves the Archimedes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Another good call.
But I don't disagree. I think it's cool that Cerritos should be smaller. Absolutely.
The art people seem to agree with me that it should be smaller.
Go art
Mike McMahon.
people. So everything is getting back to normal on Cerritos. They're taking care of their wounded. There is the big old hug scene. We go to the sick bay, or we go to the mess hall. It's now Happy First Contact instead of Happy Freeman Day. And everybody's kind of chilling there. There's a great First Contact reference when Freeman sits at the thing and he's like, have you been drinking? And she's like, they're a welcoming culture, which is sort of a mirror of Deanna's line. It's a primitive culture. So
You're
I love,
drunk. No,
I
I'm
love
not.
that.
Yes, you are.
They have some fun laughs. Mariner and Jen figure their stuff out and suddenly become BFFs. Okay.
In fact,
Sure.
it's kind of hinted that they might be more than just BFFs.
Well, yeah, though that's
Like
totally
one of
good.
those.
Totally
one
good.
of those
So you're
hate-sex
saying you like me?
relationships.
What? No, come on.
No, I mean, like, there's a legitimate amount of Hoye there, right? Like, that's a valid question. We know that Mariner...
Legitimate amount of what?
Hoye? That's the
Oh, I
phrase
thought you
for
said
it.
legitimate amount of hoeing. I was like,
No.
Whoa.
No, we know that Mariner plays both fields, which is great.
Yeah.
That's my preferred as well, so I get it.
Good, bad
But
girls.
like, right, exactly. So it's exactly the kind of situation that might be interesting here. Maybe the opposite of hating each other is now they are fuck buddies, and that's healthy. Maybe.
okay, oh yeah.
All right, so let's cut to our last significant scene where we have the conference room with the officers, where Freeman tells them that she intends to stay. And they find Commander Mandel, whose name is not said in the episode, but it's in the credits, that she tells him that she's going to turn down the transfer to her new ship. She's going to stay. Mandel says that she doesn't have a choice, and then she has handcuffs slapped onto her. And then she takes a couple steps out, and sorry.
She's
she
being
demands to know-
charged.
Yeah, she demands to know what she's being charged with, and his response is for the destruction of Pac-led planet with a Veruvian bomb and collaborating with Klingon extremists. And then he says something along the lines of, and this happened 9 hours ago while you were conveniently on this mission. Like, that's not actually a
yeah.
valid cover.
Like what? Absolutely what?
Yeah, no, these are charges that couldn't stick in a million
It
years.
almost
but-
makes me wonder if the Klingons set up the Pakleds to do this horrible thing to the Pakleds as like a non-whatever species, but the Federation would care to frame a Federation captain and start some kind of diplomatic incident there.
So I think it's one of two things. I think either the Pakleds got that second Veruvian bomb from the last
Klingon
episode,
guy.
Klingon Kai, right? And when they warped out, they took it with them. Then they accidentally blew themselves up, right? They either stupidly blew themselves up, or two, the Klingon High Council, in an effort to like cover up the misdeeds of this Klingon captain, did it themselves. They blew up Pakled planet in the same way, and then these officers here have somehow misconstrued the evidence to consider like Freeman as being responsible. Like I said, I don't think it's going to stick. Their ship may have been off, but she has a bridge full of crew that are going to be her alibi.
Yep.
And Captain Sonia Gomez is going to be an alibi as well, because they saved her life and she's been here, and they've been too busy doing anything else than stripping off
for
her plates.
20 hours. They've been ripping off hull plating.
Right, this isn't going to stick.
Yeah,
I mean, a rookie, a public defender could get this one.
Yeah, I agree. And then we end with them leaving the actual conference room and going into the hallway where the entire crew is celebrating congratulations to the captain, and they realize the manacles on her wrists.
Yep.
And then something we haven't seen in a long time in Star Trek, to be continued.
Yes.
Dun, 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 dun.
Well, you're bringing back memories
Best of both world memories.
Best
Yeah.
of both worlds. Yeah.
Well, but do you know what this means? It means the next time we get to hear last time on Star Trek Lower Decks.
Oh,
It's gonna be so cool.
Yes.
I'm gonna
I was
geek out about
surprised.
that. Oh my gosh.
I'm glad there was a cliffhanger. I think it's sure, why not?
And
It's very fitting.
It's consistent that the first season is a standalone and the second season can now have a cliffhanger thanks to Voyager. Voyager was the only series to have an official cliffhanger in its second season. TNG had Shades of Grey. DS9 had the Jem'Hadar, which did not have a cliffhanger, but still left on that ominous note.
Yes.
Enterprise did not have a cliffhanger on season 2.
Either way, I thought that it was a great way to end the season. I was very happy. We have one more last exterior shots, which was again pretty. It was just that Nova class ship detaching from Cerritos. You see a little hiss of like air as it detaches. Then it leaves, taking Captain Freeman with them.
Oh.
Leaving the ship
Yeah.
with no captain, which means Ransom is in charge now.
Yep. Oh, and Mariner's just going to give him all kinds of hell. So here's his captaincy that he was kissing ass. to
Yeah,
try to
that's
get.
something that I expect to actually come up in the episode. I wanted to be captain, but not like this. Something along those lines.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that that would have. That's going to be, if anything, it's going to be said in the first episode of season 3.
Right.
Because,
So if this show does what the two-parters do, Freeman's arrest will be resolved by the end of the next episode.
Correct.
Yes, agreed.
Because that's just what the two-parters do. And this has been taking a huge pull from TNG. All your two-part episodes are self-sealed. This will be resolved by the end of the next episode. Now, if they decide to take season 3 and go DS9 with it, then the arrest can resolve any point in the season. But there's a cool interview out there with Mike McMahon, if you want to read it, that talks about what next season is looking at. More ships, more beauty, more Pac-Leds. So that is where
I'm
we
glad
are.
we're getting more Pac-Leds. If that's, well, they're going to be the main thread of this thing. So
Yeah.
Pac-Leds are here to stay.
How do the Pac-Leds recover from losing Pac-Led a planet? Like, losing Pac-Led planet is a big deal for any culture. Losing your homeworld's a big deal.
Oh well, yeah.
What's the name of every ship in the Pac-Led fleet?
Pac-Led ship.
What is the name of every ship in the Federation fleet to the Pac-Leds?
Enterprise.
What is the name of every planet in the Pac-Led Dominion?
I see your point. I get it. However, we saw the Queen, King, and Emperor of the Pac-Leds on that one planet.
On that planet, sure. How do we know that that's even their homeworld?
Because the captain said it was, and I trust her.
Well,
but the only reason
current
that we would have figured that
homeworld.
out is if the Pac-Leds had told us.
No, they might have been able to decode it.
Or it was all a ruse. Woo!
But yeah, so overall,
have any
I thought that the
tinfoil near me.
season... I thought this season was... That's how I said, you're a conspiracy correspondent. But yeah, like, I thought this season was great. I thought it was very well balanced. I thought that they showed good growth and development in characters. It gave me some delicious Starship eye candy, which is always welcome. And it wasn't like a big shooting episode, which I think I like. I think I don't want every episode of every season to end with like the end of the universe is at risk here and big space battle. That's kind of crappy space battle.
I'm with
Right.
you. This was
And
a really great season finale. 4 season finales. It counters Shades of Grey for me.
Oh, well, it doesn't take a whole lot to top Shades of Grey. It was a
Ooh.
frickin' clip show.
You're the one who wanted a clip show as the season finale,
No, I didn't.
not you.
What?
No.
Dag.
I was
Oh,
the one
okay. I
who
couldn't tell
said
who you were
if it-
pointing at on
if
this.
they if they make season 2, the season 2 finale a clip show, I'll laugh.
Yeah.
And technically, we kind of got some clips because of Rutherford's implant deletion.
Boo.
So,
Oh, come on, stop it.
Chat pack, back me up here.
That's so much of a stretch. That's like taffy, right there.
Whew.
So, yeah. What did you think, Big J? Did you like this season? Did you like this as a finale? Like, what are your thoughts?
So, I like this as a finale. Yes, I think that the season was superb, but I know I've said this just about any time I've been asked this. The first episode of this season just feels like it was like it stood out on its own as not, to me, it just was not a good episode. It didn't feel like I was watching a show that had such a solid first season. And then from the second episode on to this one, it just like it made the first episode even more glaring because everything else was great. It's like, okay, to me, that first episode just misfired. It just misfired. I didn't like it. It was kind of boring to me, but then everything else was what you expected. Each one was great. I really like they're getting more of those serialized tones in the show. So yes, it's episodic, but you still kind of have that season-long thread that's just there. It's not the main part. It was like the whole season had a B plot, and that B plot of the season was the Packlets, the whole setting up the framing of, well, which we know now, the framing of a Starfleet ship. I'm interested to see why. Okay, I was about to say why this one, and again, it's like, okay, well, if it wasn't Captain Freeman and the Cerritos, then we wouldn't have the. That's the point here. It's just, to me, it kind of seems like they're going through a lot here dependent on one ship and one captain.
Yeah, we don't know why it's being pinned on them. We don't know if maybe the fact that these shady guys have something to do with Rutherford's implants because they have the same voice actor. Who knows? There's more to this plot for sure. I'm sure we'll find out more. And just to counter you, just because I know I've said this before, I really liked the first episode of season 2. I thought it was fantastic. So, different opinions.
Yeah.
Different opinions exist. That's all.
I exist to look for the enjoyment in these episodes. The speculation and the detail orientedness and the canon discussions, those all come after like the 4th viewing, you know? Like I really just like to sit down and let these episodes take me where they want to go. And if it means that I'm gonna see a giant floating yoked ransom face biting down on the saucer section of the Cerritos, fine, I will take that, because I love Jerry O'Connell, and I want him to keep being on here. Jerry O'Connell, you can slide into my DMs.
Yeah.
Slider
Yeah.
joke.
Love that.
Oh,
Love
this sliders.
So,
the ASMR.
I think that, they gave us a ton of stuff to be tantalized for. I thought that they gave us a whole lot of celebrity guest stars on these episodes, which was great. The guy who played the Duplers was well known. We had Tom Paris on things. We've had a number of voice acting in this season that was very good. So
I'm going to close
good
this
times.
out with a revelation from the Mike McMahon interview. Mike McMahon says, next season, we're putting the puzzle pieces all together, but you have all the puzzle pieces from this season.
Oh.
Oh,
really? Okay. Well, and you know what I just thought of, kind of going back to the whole, they're doing this huge mastermind plot. Why is it being pinned on the captain of the least important ship in the fleet? Kind of reminds me of the big plot hole of Star Trek Nemesis. So it's kind of a thing where, yes, you've got this clone of Picard. Yes, part of the story. That's the plot. It's great, et cetera, et cetera. But at the time in which this cloning or the gathering of the sample from Picard, he was in between ships. This was in between Stargazer and Enterprise, and I believe there's 7 or 8 years, if I recall, in between. So
almost
it's like
9.
Right.
Stargazer was destroyed at the Battle of Maxia in 2355.
Right, and
Probably had a
that's
command between the two. We just don't know the details. Maybe multiple commands, honestly.
Well, now hold on a second, though. We already know that there's a Romulan Commodore just a couple of years later. She was deep in Starfleet. She totally could have been the one who got that sample in the 2350s.
Okay.
Some Lieutenant JG or Lieutenant Commander who was serving on the starbase where they had to debrief him. She'd have access. Come on.
I mean, there were Romulan spies like Simon Tarsy's in there too. So who knows?
Simon Tarsy's total Romulan spy.
Nora Satai did nothing wrong.
Nora Satai did nothing wrong. But there's your conspiracy theory for the day. Commander O is the one who stole, or Commodore O is the one who stole Picard's genes and gave them to the Romulans to make Shinzon.
Yeah. Well, and somehow we've managed to do it again as tradition. Take a 24-minute episode and turn it into a 2-hour review thing.
The finale,
All right.
It's fine.
Okay.
Well, Chat Pack and the audience, if you've stuck with us this long, we are truly grateful and humbled by your audience. Stick around because this might be the last episode of Star Trek Lower Decks, but in just 2 weeks, Star Trek Prodigy comes out, and then next month, Star Trek Discovery Season 4. In addition to that, we have special interviews with Noah Averbach-Katz, who played Rin in Star Trek Discovery, and that second book in the Coda series, author James Swallow sat down with us. So look forward to the next 2 weeks to seeing those episodes as well. As always,
Can't wait.
Thank you for going boldly with Beyond Trek Podcast. Hey everybody, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our Patreon and Anchor supporters. Big thanks to Stephanie Baker, S. Tam, Anne Marie, Jim Cook, and Nora Hickson. We really appreciate your support. Thanks for being a part of Beyond Trek Podcast.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your ears. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.